Hello, this is Shambhavi. Welcome to Satsang. Satsang is an ancient spiritual practice from India. It means being in reality together. I give Satsang live every Wednesday and Sunday night in Portland, Maine. This Dharma talk was recorded during one of our Wednesday night gatherings. Please visit jayakula.org to learn more about the teachings. You can find video satsangs on Jayakula's YouTube channel, and my books are all available on Amazon.com. Much love to you, wherever and however you are. Tonight I want to talk about measuring. So maybe you've noticed when you measure yourself against other people. None of you have ever done that. That you measure yourself against people who you can look down upon. Isn't that really weird? That we would measure ourselves against people who we feel are inferior? I mean, if we're going to measure ourselves, at least it should be something we're aiming for, right? But obviously we do that to make ourselves feel better. And then sometimes if our form of pride is shame, because shame is a form of pride. Newsflash. Then we might measure ourselves against people we feel are better than we are, but only a little better. Only somewhat better. So whether we're measuring ourselves out of some kind of positive feeling of pride, and that positive is in air quotes, or whether we're measuring ourselves out of a prideful feeling of shame, we don't really aim very high or very low. Everything's sort of in the murky middle, who we're comparing ourselves with. And we just remain on a horizontal plane, switching back between pride and humiliation, or shame and humiliation. If any of you are feeling humiliated right now while I'm talking to you, that's a big clue that you're on that horizontal track where the train just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between no station and no station. There's not really any place for shame in the process of waking up. When we enter into the path with a certain degree of sincerity, we have to leave shame behind. And I know it's a habit, easier said than done, because again, a track, the train just keeps going, and sometimes it's, we're going, stop, but the train just keeps going. However, we have to begin to notice what we're doing and make very strong moves to get out of that situation of moving between pride and shame. So I want to say a little bit about what it really looks like when you step out of this. First of all, if you step out of this habit of moving between pride and shame, or humiliation and pride, or humiliation and shame, all in the same flat world situation. When you move out of it, you never, ever again have a desire to criticize what anyone else is doing. For instance, let's say that you feel other people aren't keeping their commitments and you complain about it. People take vows or they make commitments. Maybe it's an ordinary commitment to do something in Karacracy, the Arseva arm, or maybe it's something to do with doing your practice every day, or maybe it's something to do with keeping other sorts of promises and commitments. The only reason that anyone would ever disparage or criticize anyone for anything like that is a fixation we call pride or shame. They're the same thing. So when you know you have made a more advanced step onto the path, when you no longer feel any desire to criticize what anyone else is doing, if you find yourself trash-talking people or criticizing people or making snide comments about what other people are doing, you're a baby on the path. Right? It's okay to be a baby, but just recognize that you're a baby. You're not an advanced student. If you put in 10 hours a day on the cushion, but the other 11th and 12th hour that you're up and about it, relating to people, is spent complaining about what other people are doing or trash-talking other people, you might as well just go get a job, slinging hash in a restaurant because your practice isn't really working. You probably advance quicker working as a short order cook, having to interact with people, and have your silly ideas about things tested a little bit more. One time when I was a lot younger, but I had been practicing for maybe 15 years, I had written this book. It was a diary of some sort, and it never got published because it involved a teacher whose community had a big blowout at one point, a big scandal, and I decided I didn't really want to be publishing a book about it. I just felt like it was more important to keep practicing, not to expose scandals. So anyway, I had showed it to somebody, and they read it, and the first thing that they said about it was, well, you aren't fooling around. He said, whatever else you could say about this book, it's clear you aren't fooling around. You aren't kidding about this spiritual stuff. And that's kind of what we all have to understand, right? We have to be stricter with ourselves, to not indulge ourselves either in public or even in private with our loved ones in this kind of measuring and comparison that comes out of our mouths as disparagement and trash talk and anger at other people and what other people are doing. So I think here we can borrow a useful phrase from 12-step programs, which is keep the focus on yourself. This is your path of waking up. Trash talking somebody else or measuring yourself against somebody else or being angry at what other people are doing is not part of waking up. It's just part of the same old, same old. It's part of not waking up. Then an even deeper step that you could take is recognizing that when you're angry at other people is really sadness. It's not anger, it's sadness. And then beyond that, it's really longing. We all want a more ideal world. Somewhere in us, we want a world where people are loving and treat each other compassionately and, don't disparage each other. And we all want to have our own weaknesses or our own foibles allowed by other people, not disparaged. We don't want to be put down either. So there is grief in there about how things are, just in general, including our own lives, and there is longing for a different kind of a world. You can get to the point where you get a lot more serious about how you relate to your practice and other people, and stop worrying about what other people are doing. And then if you can go beyond that and even go deeper and contact your own longing, that would be a really wonderful thing. When I measure myself against Ma. I fall short in every category every single time. That's the kind of measuring you want to be doing. Right? You don't want to be doing the kind of measuring that makes you feel, or the kind of measuring that makes you feel humiliated. Both of those kinds of measures are completely useless. But if you measure yourself against the teacher that you feel has some realization, or against someone like Ma, then it's a completely different situation. It's a completely different game. I am never, ever going to be what Ma was. And I know it. So the result of that measuring is modesty, humility, patience, resignation of not a sad sort, just like, okay, this is it. This is what's going on. You could call that self-acceptance. Ma called that resignation. She said, we have to resign ourselves to how things actually are with us. So if you're going to measure yourself, you have to measure yourself against the immeasurable. That's the only successful form of measuring, or the only fruitful form of measuring. Measuring yourself against the immeasurable causes you to relax. It causes you to have a more reasonable expectation of yourself. So think bigger, not smaller. And I think that is the antidote to pride and shame. Right? Is recognizing the vast intelligence, the vast compassion, the vast creativity that's here. And as Swami Lakshmanji said, we are never going to be God in the sense of, in our individualistic or individualesque incarnation. We are never going to be God. We're going to be like God. We're always going to fall short in some way or another. This is the year of pride. Every year we have a theme. And this year we're talking about pride and investigating our own pride. And we're going to be a lot stricter with ourselves about that. I don't want any trash talking, even in private. You will never hear me disparage anybody who's had a lapse in practice or, somehow has fallen by the wayside in some way or another. Or even people who have broken their samaya. I might be fierce about it, right? I might be sad about it. I might be worried about it. I might feel lots of things, but you will never hear me trash talk anybody. And you shouldn't either. Including trash talking yourself. There's also the other genre of person who imagines that everybody else is nearly realized, except for them. That is very ridiculous. You're not getting away with any of it. You're not getting away with the over-the-fence, gossipy, backbiting, trash-talky thing, and you're not getting away with the shame, humiliation thing either. You're just wasting time, wasting energy. Valuable time in a human body with teachings and teacher and community. So get a little tougher with yourselves and start measuring yourself against Ma. And good luck. Yeah, I've told this story before, but I didn't read Autobiography of a Yogi until I was in my early 40s. Thank God. But when I read it, I got toward the end where Yukteswar comes back and he's talking to Lahiri Mahashay, and Sri Yukteswar is like in his ascended body or something. He's like a vision. He's not really in a human body anymore. Lahiri Mahashay says, so, hey Sri, what's going on in the ascended realms? Tell me what it's like. And Sri Yukteswar says, well, there's worlds upon worlds upon worlds of subtle realms where people are still working out subtle karmas. And I was like, OMG! That was the first I heard of that. Yeah, it was utterly horrifying. But after a while I got over it and I realized, that's actually relaxing on a certain level. I'm not really going to be getting anywhere anytime soon.
I have a couple questions. After our trip visiting my parents, there was just Nani and I would take walks, and I would just have to process what just went down, things my mom said, or whatever it was, and I was actively trying not to put them down or make myself better, more evolved than them in some way, but in some ways I do feel like I've done more self-reflection and more work, and in the process, there's just this period of processing before I can get to a point where I'm like, they are them, I am me, this is fine, but in the route to get there, I feel like I have to talk about like the venting that happens, that, oh, why does she say this stuff, and like there's a lot of that comes out before I get to the point where I'm like, it's fine, they can do them, I'm gonna do me, you know, like that middle.
Well, you're, you know, the whole thing is you're talking yourself into this and that, and that's always going to remain on a horizontal level. And you know, it's not bad that it's not really going to get you where you want to go. You'll just always have to keep talking yourself back to some more reasonable position. The only way that I know to really get over that is to literally recognize for reals, concretely, absolutely, in an embodied way, the equal intrinsic value of everyone. Then however anybody is showing up, you understand that, yeah, okay, you've done more inner work, but that doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you someone who's done more inner work. Period. There's nothing to be said about it. But you and your parents, you all have the same intrinsic value. You all have the same worth. And that can only be discovered, as far as I know, through doing practice. It's a direct, feelingful insight. It isn't something you think in your mind or talk yourself into. It's something you encounter. And then you have to, you know, grok it. You have to digest that. You have to integrate with that insight. The more important thing is, what is it getting you to want to measure everything and everyone? You're never going to come out on top once and for all. Ever. You know, you've done some inner work. There's 1 billion people who've done more than you and 1 billion people who've done less than you. You're somewhere in the middle. What difference does it make? Who are your parents? They're just a couple of people. What difference does it make whether you've done a little more inner work than they have? Your field of vision is so small. Not only is there like 10 billion people on the planet, or however many you have now, many of whom have done lots more inner work than you have, but there's like zillions of lifetimes of people. So you're like a little speck in an infinite field of people who have done varying things to varying degrees. It really makes no difference whatsoever. You know, there's also people in this community who like to think they're smarter than other people. Like, what people? Right? Like those 4 people you use as your touchstones to convince yourself you're so smart. Again, your field of vision is so small on purpose. If you really widen your vision, there's nothing really to measure. It's a ludicrous operation to measure whether you've done more or less inner work, or you're smarter or not smarter than somebody else.
The other thing is to deal with the barrage of self-disparagement that I've been feeling.
Yeah,
for
that's the same thing,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. So how can you just step out of the whole thing?
Well, so I've been trying by doing Om Ma every time I catch myself.
Great.
And that was my second question is, that mantra, you know, feels like a prayer, which I guess like mantras are. But the Ma part, because but I just wanted to talk about that mantra, and like I know Ma doesn't specifically mean Anandamaya Ma, but like just about Ma as the Ma with a capital M, Ma.
Well, first of all, it's, you know, Ma with a long A. So it's Ma.
Ma.
Right? And in every language in the world, pretty much, with only a very few exceptions, that word relates to mother. And it also relates to divine mothers all over the world, various deities and incarnations of the divine. So that word comes with the aspirations and love and tenderness and compassion of all humans throughout all time. It's a sound that carries all of that, given to us by the Ma to chant. So it's a vibratory experience, and that's how you should relate to it. Relate to it as a vibratory experience, and just let your heart loose while you're chanting it. It's whatever ma you want, right? It's all mas. It's whatever specific ma you like. It's just the sound ma that has been given to us. I mean, it's extraordinary that one syllable is used by so many cultures throughout time, all over the world. It carries all of that with it. When any mantra is chanted by many, many people over much time, it accrues. It's like it's entangled. I don't want to use any scientific terms, but it's connected then with all of the people and all of the chants of it. Not only is Ma been chanted in spiritual context, but every baby says Ma, right? It's like, the whole planet is saying Ma.
Is this really the same as being critical of other people, of yourself? It's really the same.
Yeah, it's the same because we are critical of other people to get out of being critical of ourselves. So it's like we eject self-criticism, and as it's being ejected, it turns into other criticism. We distract ourselves criticizing others. What are we distracting ourselves from is self-criticism.
You mentioned that shame is a form of pride. Can you speak about that a little, please? I'm a little confused.
Well, shame is kind of hurt pride. Right? Sometimes people are very prideful, and then I'll point that out and they'll go into a reaction of shame. It's that other side of it. And that makes people very brittle. I mean, sometimes it depends on where we are in terms of our spiritual condition. People are in a condition where if you point out their pride, they're okay with that. And they go, yeah. Right? That's a good place to be, right? Because you don't go into any big reaction about it. You see how ridiculous it is, and you can laugh at yourself. Being able to laugh at yourself is like the greatest thing ever. Some people will go into some self-defense about it and won't cop to it. Other people will just collapse into this puddle of shame. It really depends on where you're at. But if you won't let wisdom in, then you're just stuck with yourself. And this is where they say that the teacher is the mother without arms, right? Because the mother without arms might want to save you, but she can't. She has no arms. Right? You have to find the inner pluck to save yourself, to get yourself out of that, to try a new way. First, it means recognizing what you're doing the instant you're doing it and stopping. Right? If your response is defensiveness, or your response is moving into shame, so, no, you can't tell me anymore because I'm just feeling so bad about myself. Right? Then the first big step is to recognize that's what you're doing and just stop, just dead stop. You don't have to put anything in its place. Right? Just see how it feels to not do that. We always have to make an inner decision that we're not going to indulge in something anymore, or that we're going to keep not indulging in it, every time it comes up. We have to make that inner decision. It takes fortitude. It takes determination. It takes courage. It takes remembering. It takes understanding that whatever it is we're indulging in is not getting us where we want to go, and never, ever, ever will. Right? No matter how annoyed we are at other people and how other people are behaving, and no matter how many times we point out to our friends that we're annoyed at how other people are behaving, that will change nothing about our circumstance, ever. Right? We'll never do anything but give us a momentary, very shallow kind of pleasure. No matter how many times we fold into a puddle of shame, it's not going to give us refuge. The world will just keep being the world. right? We're still going to have challenges, and trying to disappear into shame is just not going to work. The only refuge is in discovering your real value. So you have to really get that whatever you're doing is not going to work. It's never going to work. And you have to find what it is you're really longing for and go for it. Because we're all longing to discover that inner value. It's not really inner, but for convenience sake, I'll say inner. And some of it does involve just getting a lot more serious about not being so self-indulgent. And it's in a self-compassionate way. It's not like a pejorative way. It's like, it's not compassionate to let yourself just keep doing the same old thing over and over again. Right? I know that even though I feel like sometimes I'm in a prison, every move is being watched by wisdom. I know it's the greatest gift on earth. I know it's the greatest possible thing, even though it's super uncomfortable at times. There's not one whisper of a prideful thing that I feel that I'm unaware of. You know how annoying that is? I posted this video of a pond. Someone did time-lapse photography of this pond in Massachusetts through 4 seasons. And there's so many different creatures coming to this pond. There was otters and deer and moose and a little bobcat and herons and, fish. And there was just so many creatures coming to this one tiny little pond in the woods in Massachusetts. Now think of the whole universe. In fact, think of all of existence in the multiverse. And that pond being replicated zillions and zillions and zillions and zillions of times. Do you know how many creatures are out there? We have to keep thinking like this. The mind of God is immeasurable. Think of what you're measuring yourself against. It's like a speck within a speck. In one little pond, dozens of different kinds of creatures. This reality is like an insane variety production machine. Absolutely insane. The big Costco in the sky. But like Costco is like a living symbol of all of existence. Mad overproduction.
What's the point?
Whenever you're thinking small, just move your mind out.
Into Costco.
Costco of space. Think bigger. Please make yourselves feel small. But also not, because you're part of this unbelievable productivity.
And things get infinitely smaller too.
They do.
So we're in the middle.
Yeah. We're always in the middle.
Pushing yourself against the smallness.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ways of talking about self-realization is walking in the middle, or walking in the middle way, or walking in the sandhi, walking between. Be in the middle. Relax in the middle. You actually have no effing idea where you are. All you measurers. You don't know how good you are, or how smart you are, or what kind of practitioner you are, or how you're doing in anything. So that's really the truth. The only way you can ever come up with any kind of statement about how well you're doing or how badly you're doing is by narrowing the field of competitors to such a minute field.
That's why we start being critical and judging, so that we can find our place.
Yeah. That's right. Because we can see if we're okay. We are okay, but not because we beat out the 7 people we're comparing ourselves to. The 7 human beings, you know.
How else do we come to terms with that? How do we come to terms with that?
With
Just
what?
say, okay, it's fine. With being in the middle of who knows where.
Well, you know what? You don't actually have a choice. Because it's actually your real condition. Jayakula is a nonprofit community offering opportunities to learn and practice in the direct realization traditions of Trika Shaivism and Dzogchen. We are based in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon. Visit jayakula.org to explore more of our offerings.